Manufacturing-focused provinces like Ontario and Quebec would see a big hit to their motor vehicle and parts industries as well as aerospace. Ontario Premier Doug Ford estimates the impact of blanket tariffs could cost the province 500,000 jobs. Now, economist Eric Johnson says many positions in the auto industry on both sides of the border are sensitive to trade disruption.
I'd rather have it done in Detroit.
Donald Trump says he wants the automobile industry moved back to the U.S. from Canada and Mexico. He's promised tariffs starting February 1st.
Is bracing not just for the impact of tariffs, but potentially a larger trade.
Yes. President Trump's trade tariffs on Canada are sparking retaliation. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promising comparable tariffs on the U.S.
Polite, we're reasonable, but we also...
The stage is set for one of the biggest trade battles in modern history, and the consequences could shake the entire North American economy to its core. Donald Trump, once again pushing his America First agenda, has set his sights on the car industry, threatening massive tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico. But this time, Canada and Mexico are not backing down. They're hitting back, and their response could leave American car makers, consumers, and workers facing serious trouble. This is the kind of move that could permanently alter North America's auto industry, and the U.S. might be the one left in the dust. The big question is, does Trump really understand what he's messing with here?
According to economists, Trump's threatened tariffs would pose serious challenges to Canada's labour market, especially in trade-sensitive industries, which represent 2.4 million jobs, or roughly 12% of our total workforce. Research by RBC shows that jobs in energy-exporting Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, and even Newfoundland and Labrador stand to be impacted.
Close to 10% of vehicles on the road in the U.S. were made in Canada. But they're not at all completely Canadian products. The industry is so integrated between this country and our neighbors to the south that before a vehicle is assembled, the parts are estimated to have crossed the border up to 8 times. And it's not new. This plant in Windsor, Ontario has been making cars.
The first thing you need to know is this economic spat isn't just about tariffs. It is about an industry that runs on a delicate, decades-old supply chain that connects factories across 3 countries. It's about a system that has kept American cars competitive on the global stage, and now it's all at risk. The retaliation from America's closest trade partners could send shockwaves through the U.S. economy, pushing car prices sky high, gutting American manufacturing jobs, and dealing a blow to the electric vehicle industry at the worst possible time.
Done in Detroit.
Donald Trump says he wants the automobile industry moved back to the U.S. from Canada and Mexico. He's promised tariffs starting February 1st.
If he does that in automotive.
Flavio Volpe is with Canada's Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. His members, he says, work on slim.
The problem starts with one simple fact. The U.S. auto industry isn't just American. It never was. Every car that rolls off an assembly line in Detroit, Kentucky, or Ohio is built with parts that come from all over North America. Factories in Mexico manufacture engines and transmissions. Canadian plants supply steel and aluminum. And then, in the U.S., everything comes together to create the finished product. This isn't some accidental arrangement. It's been carefully designed over decades to keep production costs low while maintaining high efficiency. Automakers rely on just-in-time delivery, meaning parts arrive precisely when they're needed. There's no stockpiling of materials, no backup plan for sudden supply chain disruptions. If one link in this chain breaks, the whole system grinds to a halt. And that's exactly what Trump's new tariff plan threatens to do.
About 130,000 Canadians work in auto manufacturing and parts manufacturing. Over 1 million American workers work in the same industries. And so, this is going to have some ripple effects, whether it's a plant in Ohio or Tennessee or Texas. You would certainly see the ripple effects of this hit those places and, be felt, in a lot of states that both, Republicans in the House and the Senate did really well in.
He notes that stocks, currencies, and bond markets have been reluctant to price in a...
The proposal? Raise import taxes on cars and auto parts coming from Canada and Mexico. The goal is simple. Force automakers to build more cars inside the U.S., create American jobs, and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers.
Argue that a Canadian crew cab pickup truck isn't a threat to their national security.
Now, the way the industry is built with cooperation across the border is supposed to make North America more competitive, to help it compete with countries with long histories making vehicles and one big up-and-comer.
We're all worried about China, and this is like going into a race against a top sprinter but breaking your own foot on purpose.
Even if tariffs did force jobs back to the U.S., a trade war would hurt companies in that country. Almost 40% of the vehicles and parts produced by the U.S. are bought by.
But here's the problem. The U.S. auto industry isn't built to function without Canada and Mexico. Tariffs on auto imports won't just hurt foreign companies, they'll cripple American automakers too. And the numbers are terrifying.
A trade war this time around.
The market has become very wary of wanting to price in any aspect of the Trump trade after, the head fake they had last time.
Johnson says he'll be watching to see if the tariff threats are a way to force the conversation on improving U.S. access to the Canadian market or even geopolitical issues like defense spending. And if that's the case, he says these deadlines could be punted yet again. And
experts predict that if these tariffs go through, the cost of every new car in the U.S. could rise by $1,000 to $3,000. That's not because of a global shortage or a supply crisis. It's purely because Trump wants to make foreign-made car parts more expensive. For the average American looking to buy a new car, that's a serious financial hit. For big automakers like Ford, GM, and Tesla, it's a potential catastrophe. But the real problem? Canada and Mexico are fighting back, and their retaliation could hit the U.S. even harder.
Get into Donald Trump's mind and understand what really is going on. But as of this morning, so we can speak, he posted on Truth Social, Tom, once again confirming that tariffs are coming. It's on the 4th of March. We will see those 25% on all Canadian goods and 10% on energy.
Yeah, he says most Canadian goods. I think that we're going to have to just wait and see what actually happens. And I think that that's been one of the wisest aspects. Everybody, for example, in the Liberal leadership race says, well, dollar for dollar, retaliation. But the Canadian government has basically been keeping its own good counsel on this. There are a lot of things that Canada can do to retaliate against the United States. But we don't want to have an all-out trade war because...
Let's start with Canada. The country is already preparing to slap a 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles, doubling their price overnight. And this isn't just about punishing one company. It's a direct message to Washington.
On March 4th, I think we'll wait and see. The people who run the auto companies in the States and in Canada all know that cars go back and forth across the border any number of times before they actually wind up in the showroom. And it's the way the industry's been built. We know that companies like Boeing are saying, be careful. If you go after aluminum, we're not going to be able to get that quality aluminum from Russia. This is supposed to be one of the American things. We're going to get more aluminum from Russia. But not only is it more polluting, it's not the same quality that you need to do some of this finer work. So
right.
The market will push back. American consumers will come to realize when they're spending 10, 15, 20 bucks more for a tank of gas that it's because of Donald Trump's tax.
Tesla, which dominates 70% of the U.S. electric vehicle market, relies on Canada as a key export destination. If this tariff is enforced, Tesla sales in Canada will crater. Fewer sales mean lower production, which means factory shutdowns and layoffs back in the U.S., and it doesn't stop there.
Everything.
Yeah, you spoke of cars, and we heard from the president in the White House yesterday saying their cars, meaning Canada's cars. But the truth is, it's not our cars, it's cars we make together, and parts go back and forth 3 or 4 times. So that's a big difference there too, like you were pointing out. But at the same time, the efforts that are underway, Tom, we've had delegations of our premiers going in once or twice. And today, as we speak, we have another delegation there, with the fentanyl czar also present at the moment, trying to impress upon the Washington, the work that we in Canada are doing to protect our borders. Does any of this truly count in the current scheme of things?
It does.
Okay.
For example, to the extent that Trump is breaking the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade deal.
Now, Mexico is considering its own counter tariffs, specifically targeting U.S.-made trucks and SUVs. That's a big deal because American automakers export hundreds of thousands of vehicles to Mexico every year. If Mexico slaps tariffs on those vehicles, Ford, GM, and Chrysler will have 2 bad choices: eat the costs and lose profits, or pass the costs on to consumers and risk pricing themselves out of the market. And here's where everything starts to spiral out of control. If the US, Canada, and Mexico keep escalating this trade war, the entire North American auto supply chain could collapse. That's not just bad for car companies, it's a disaster for workers.
On this road in El Paso, Texas, stretching as far as the eye can see, thousands of trucks make their way back to Mexico after dropping billions of dollars worth of goods bound for U.S. consumers.
This is a scene that you see every day. Millions of dollars of product are coming in from Mexico into the United States.
Tens of thousands of jobs rely on this system functioning smoothly, but with tariffs blocking the flow of parts, production delays will skyrocket, factories will start bleeding money, layoffs will become inevitable, and then there's the inflation problem. With manufacturing costs rising, automakers will have no choice but to pass those expenses on to consumers. That means higher car prices, higher loan payments, and fewer people able to afford new vehicles.
Borders are presumably pitching Canada's plan and work at the border. We know that March 4th deadline for those tariffs that we just talked about, that Truth Social post that Donald Trump has posted today saying that those March 4th tariffs are going ahead. Those 25% sweeping tariffs are tied to fentanyl and how Canada handles fentanyl. That's what we've heard repeatedly from Howard Lutnick, one of the president's close advisors. And what we continue to hear is that they're going ahead for now as it stands, but negotiations and talks are ongoing. That is kind of the latest when it comes to those 25% tariffs expected to come into effect March.
This is where things start to get really dangerous for the U.S. economy. The auto industry isn't just another sector, it's one of the biggest drivers of American manufacturing. If car prices shoot up and sales decline, we're not just talking about fewer jobs at Ford and GM, we're talking about a ripple effect across thousands of small businesses that depend on the auto industry. Car dealerships, auto repair shops, parts manufacturers, they all feel the impact when the industry takes a hit. And this isn't just about conventional cars.
So we all know that Donald Trump is...
Sabemos que Donald Trump está obsesionado con los aranceles. Pero ¿por qué está obsesionado con imponer aranceles a México y Canadá? Después de todo, Estados Unidos se encuentra entre estos estados. Recuerdo que en su primer mandato, Trump hablaba principalmente de China y de la relación económica entre ambos países. Veamos lo que pasó con los aranceles en su primer mandato. Para quienes no lo sepan, un arancel es un tipo de impuesto a los bienes que entran al país. China y Vietnam fueron los que tuvieron los aranceles más altos, como vemos en las columnas de este gráfico. Y curiosamente, Joe Biden mantuvo esos impuestos en vigencia. Por cierto, a Vietnam se lo suele usar como conducto para bienes de China. Asimismo, aquí vemos que México y Canadá tuvieron aranceles bajos debido al tratado.
The real danger here is what this trade war does to the electric vehicle EV market. The US is already falling behind in the EV race. China and Europe are investing billions into new battery technology, while American automakers are struggling to keep up. Now, with Trump's tariffs driving up costs, EV makers in the US will have an even harder time competing. If Canada and Mexico lock out American EVs, companies like Tesla, Rivian, and Ford's electric division will face serious financial pressure. And the only winner in all of this? China.
It will ultimately depend on the extent of Trump's decision.
We don't need Canada for that.
COVID-19 supports cost the economy hundreds of billions of dollars, and American tariffs could too.
We will be looking to try to ensure that those kinds of things do not significantly impact Canadian workers, Canadian companies. But this is a process. People should get ready for a bit of a bumpy ride.
The projections that we have seen indicate that this could be more serious for our provincial economy than the 2008.
While the U.S. is busy fighting trade wars with its closest neighbors, China is positioning itself to take over the global EV market. The Chinese government is pouring money into battery production, supply chains, and new manufacturing plants. And guess what? They don't have to deal with Trump's tariffs. They're watching this North American mess unfold, and they're getting ready to flood the market with cheap, high-quality EVs that Americans might not be able to compete with. While the U.S. is stuck in trade battles, China is making deals, expanding production, and preparing to dominate the future of transportation. So where does this all end?
And this is going to hit you. In your area, you need aluminum. You need steel from Canada. This is going to hit you. That is going to start pushing through because those people might not be able to change the result with regard to Trump immediately. But they will be talking to each other, talking to their constituents, and slowly but surely people will come to realize that Trump sees this as tons of money falling out of the sky for him. It's a tax on everything Americans.
The most likely scenario is that Trump's tariffs will backfire, forcing him to either back down or negotiate a new trade deal with Canada and Mexico. But what do you think will happen if he doesn't? Kindly let us know your opinions in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. Thanks for watching till the end.